So the new Emperor, his Holy Radiance, actually has a name that we just learned, and his reign might be in the triple digits, meaning this guy could literally be undead or some type of a light enhanced being. Now, we learned they're wielding a brand new form of magic, the so-called Sacred Flame. Imagine like a mix between a fire mage and a light priest. This is not just a light, they're using this power to fly zeppelins, but most importantly, they're able to actually resurrect undead through this magic, which neither the fire mages are doing nor the priests. The light undead models have finally been explained, we know the story behind them. So what is the Sacred Flame? Is this really light necromancy? Who is this Emperor, and could we be wielding this power soon? If you're playing WoW Terrascend or any other MMORPG, you're winning a PvP scenario and getting ambushed by lag is the worst thing, but LegoFast has the perfect solution. Just click my link and download it, click Smart Boost and lower your ping right away. LegoFast is amazing for World of Warcraft, in particular the new MMORPG Terrascend. It's compatible with PC and consoles, and it can improve your FPS, guaranteeing a seamless gaming experience, and you can also choose a bunch of other games. So no more delays and frustrations, vanquish high ping, try it completely free with my link below, and use code Doron to get 30% off. So at this point, you have heard about the Light Undead as well as this new Arathi, and you're very likely familiar with the concept, but seeing that we're close to the end of the War Within beta and a bit more than a month before release, we're constantly getting new information and learning what is actually going on, as we had gotten a ton more context on this new magic that these guys are wielding from various dialogues and books, the Emperor, and we also learned about this really mysterious and intriguing Light Undead model that we had data mined a few months back. So by this point, you probably know that the Arathi Empire exists, very likely on the other side of Azeroth. It is an empire that is very rich, powerful, technologically advanced, and that these guys were encountering here in Helluval were sent directly on Emperor's orders in order to battle the Void, and what the Emperor saw as the final battle between the Light and the Void on Azeroth, the End Times that they called Renilash. This is essentially the same vision Velen got as well as Zera, and interestingly enough, the Emperor got the vision around the same time as Velen, which was back in Cataclysm. However, new information is that Blizzard did a super cool Easter egg, as in hiding a book with text that really just appeared like complete gibberish, but people have actually managed to figure out the letters, and we learned that the Emperor himself is known as Thoradin the something. We still can't figure out the numbers, so it could be Thoradin the 4th or it could be Thoradin the 20th. What is really interesting is that you probably know this name. You might have heard of a little place called Thoradin's Wall in Arathi Highlands. In fact, Thoradin was the main Emperor of the original Arathi Empire. Now, we don't know whether this guy is the direct descendant of the original Thoradin or he's just using the name, but it is very likely the exact same lineage. Interesting enough, it says that in the year of his glorious dominion, and then we have 3 digits here, only one of these numbers can be deciphered, that says second, so it could literally mean that this is the 502nd year of his glorious dominion. If this really is the case, and it is referring to this guy's reign in particular, he could literally be immortal or undead or being kept alive by the light, which might be why they keep worshipping this guy and why they call him his Holy Radiance. As we know by the lore, I mean, humans and WoW live about the same as we do, it's about the same lifespan. The only ones we know that are sort of immortal are Turelion, that was significantly aged due to time travel and his time with the light, and Merrill Fellstorm, the first ever undead on Azeroth that was kept undead through his magic. So if this book is referring to Thoradin's reign, this guy could be nearly 1000 years old and could even be a light undead himself. Keep in mind, we still haven't seen a picture or we don't know what he looks like. However, this brings us to the magic that they're wielding, which is something unlike we had ever seen before, the so-called Sacred Flame. Now, by all the current evidence from the beta, this doesn't seem to be light, but it seems to be like a mix between priests and mages. The reason is that their airships are literally being powered up by this force, which usually would be done through fire. We had never seen light power zeppelins in the past. We've seen Naru light power ships, but these are quite different, as in they're more like trans-dimensional ships. It's a very different form of magic. Interesting enough, we had found like this scientific Arathi document talking about the cosmology. The main point of this seems to be like making fun of Shadowlands and how they made the lore insanely complicated, and you can check that out in detail in my previous video. However, there is a little tidbit that actually introduces new lore and sheds some light on what we've been wondering about. The Arathi science guy essentially says that they don't follow the same views as their Arathi Empire ancestors, and they had evolved their thinking. They don't believe singular forces can exist and that they can be pure like just the light or just the void. They mention how the Firelands, for example, use fire and magma, which are similar but not the same. Also, keep in mind how these guys actually know about the Firelands, and seeing that they're wielding some type of fire magic, it is very likely we're going to be seeing elementals soon. So it's almost certain that they managed to somehow mix arcane elemental magic with their devotion to the light, and they managed to create this sacred flame, as they call it. Now, you may be thinking, big deal, just a little bit of flavor, but based on the new lore, this magic might be insanely potent. And when I say insanely potent, I mean crazy potent, because it looks like it is actually capable of necromancy. Now, by this point, you must have seen these light undead models somewhere on the internet, and we actually have an explanation. It wasn't what we had originally expected, but this is super early. It could still be connected to the Forsaken later down the line when we figure out the entire mechanism. But long story short, the Arathi and Hellfall are kinda divided. So far we learned that they might not even be our allies, and that the Emperor Thoradin may actually be evil, and they might not take kindly to our races of our factions and the magics that we use. The Arathi say to Anduin that they're essentially desperate and that they need every help they can get from outsiders, which is why they're working with us. But the Empire and the Emperor is neither desperate nor weak, and they could potentially be hostile towards us. So this split is actually happening even with their seemingly desperate expedition that is stuck in Hellfall. A part of these Sacred Flame devotees don't want to work with us outsiders, and instead they decided to start resurrecting their own and raising them as undead that we have to defeat. As they say, they're raising soldiers that are loyal only to the Emperor. Now we got two really interesting things here. One is Kalia, the other are elves. So we have actually seen a light undead. Light undead raised directly by the Naru, Kalia Manatil, that is right now one of the Forsaken leaders. This is a little bit different though, as she seems to be quite preserved and almost human, and has about the exact same intellect. So the point is that the light can actually raise undead. We got this lore in Shadowlands, how the undead that we know of, the Forsaken and the Scourge, are the ones resurrected through the forces of Maldraxxus and the Shadowlands, which is why they're tied to that specific cosmological force. Recently, in Deathwing's laboratories, we have found gigantic arcane undead dragons, which very likely implies that almost every cosmological force, when mixed with that magic, could potentially resurrect people. A really interesting example is the old school character Meryl Fellstorm that I previously mentioned, the first ever undead on Azeroth. He is a human that has been undead for thousands of years on Azeroth solely through his magic, and keep in mind, he was a mage wielding fire and arcane. Even more interestingly, these Arathi are not actually humans, they're half-humans. Lore from the beta told us that sometime after the Troll Wars, which was nearly 3,000 years ago, they ventured across the sea together with the High Elves, forming a brand new empire. Over time, they mixed, so they essentially became half-elves. Some are entirely elves, some are just humans, some are a mix. However, what is the most important thing to keep in mind is why the High Elves joined the humans. Originally, the High Elves asked for help of the Arathi Empire against the Trolls, and in turn, they would teach the humans magic, as the High Elves are the descendants of the Highborn, the most advanced mage race on Azeroth. So you would imagine these arcane and fire mages mixed with the light-worshipping humans had their own separate developmental path for the next few thousands of years, and you would imagine they would come to a big breakthrough where they invented a brand new form of magic, the Sacred Flame, by mixing the various elements of other magics. No one knew about this magic because we never seen these guys, because they're very likely on the other side of Azeroth and completely isolated, so we are just learning that they managed to create something like this. We've only tasted a bit of it so far in the beta, but who knows what else this magic can do. So far, a lot of it functions like the light, but it can also be used as an energy source, and it can also resurrect actual undead. So this is like a mix between a light priest, a necromancer, and a fire mage. Once we see Thoradin and his Arathi Empire, we're probably going to see the full extent of this power, and I'm guessing if these guys become our allies, we could start wielding it, which could introduce some really interesting new classes or specs, as well as lore. Thank you for watching. Check out how Shadowlands may finally be retconned by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient workouts in history by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!